Okay, it is recording now, just so you know.
I feel like I'm at a police interview here.
Oh, there's another person just joining.
Oh.
Hi folks, how you all doing?
Hi Zoe! Hi Steve!
Hi Caitlin, hi Zoe, hi Jacqueline,
Hi
Brenda. How you all doing, all right?
Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, really good. Thanks very much everybody for coming and joining us. Just so you know, this is being recorded so that it can be used on the Beach Rangers Facebook page and various bits and pieces later on. For those, most people know me, I think. My name's Steve Bowens, and I've asked Matt Stone, who is a beach lifeguard and a supervisor, to come along and answer some questions on behalf of the Your Shore Beach Ranger project. This has kind of grown out of some of the sessions. We'll do quite a lot of sessions through Brenda at Newquay College and Cornwall Wildlife Project, our trust, to deliver beach safety and education within schools. So this has kind of grown out of that, out of the fact that we just can't go out and about at the minute. So the first thing I'd ask you to do, I'm actually going to, in a minute, I'm going to mute you all so you won't be able to speak. Or you can speak, but we won't be able to hear you. And just the reason for that initially is so that every time you speak, it will jump to your video and it can make it jump around a little bit. So just for the first little bit, I'm going to mute you all. But what I would do is I'd ask you, if you've got some questions from Matt, I'm going to introduce you to him in a minute. If you could use the chat, which is at the bottom of your screen, if you have a look along there, click on chat. And then I will read those questions out to Matt as we go along. You can unmute yourself, so if anything's not working, or if you want to speak, that's fine. You can just press the button, unmute yourself, and then you'll be able to speak. Is that all right with everybody? Okay, great. So we're expecting this to be no longer than about 30 minutes, something like that. Right. Just get my watch working. Okay, so here we go. Actually, everybody is muted, I think.
Steve, you're muted.
Thank you. That worked well. Matt, can you just tell me, how long have you been, or how long have you worked as a lifeguard, and whereabouts do you work?
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, I'm Matthew Stone, and as Steve mentioned, I work as a beach lifeguard. So I started in 2006. So I've been working for, this would have been my 14th season lifeguarding. Well, I say would have been because we started the season, as you know, and then the lifeguard service isn't happening during the coronavirus lockdown. So I've worked a lot of different beaches. I work the north coast of Cornwall, so the area from Holywell Bay to Portreath, and our station is Perranporth, and that's kind of a beach that I've worked quite a lot on, and Porth Towern as well, and St Agnes, that kind of area have been my main areas. I also work on the south coast as well, and our main station is Helston, and that covers beaches from Prior Sands all the way down to the Lizard. So you've got beaches Poldhu, Gunwallow, Kenwick Sands, and then Mullion, and then you've got Guineas Beach and Falmouth as well. So I've kind of worked all those areas in Cornwall. I've also worked a little bit, volunteered out in New Zealand on Piha as well. So I've kind of had a bit of an international experience. I'm part of the international training team for the RNLI as well. So I go abroad and deliver life-saving awards to developing countries to try and alleviate the drowning pandemic around the world. So I went to the Gambia last year, was it the year before last year, I think, and taught a course there for 7 days as well. So I've been internationally as well with my lifeguarding. But I'm a trainer assessor with Surf Life Saving Great Britain as well. So I've been doing that for 8 years now. I've taught probably about 300 beach lifeguards in that time. Most of them have gone on to work or volunteer for the RLI or Surf Life Saving. I probably reckon about 50% of them have gone on to become a paramedic or doctor. So once you've got that knowledge of life saving, you seem to jump on it, and people really enjoy it, and especially the first aid side of things.
Cool. We're starting to get some questions coming through, which is great. What do you reckon is the best day of lifeguarding that you've ever had on the beach?
Yeah, that's a difficult question, Steve, because I think every day you lifeguard is really enjoyable. There's not many days that you don't enjoy them. Even those days where it's red flagged and you can't actually go into the water, you're still doing some training with your team, or you're doing some sort of prior learning to do with first aid, or whether it's other things as well. But I think my favourite day I've ever lifeguarded probably was last year, actually. We had the last day of the season at Tra Sands. It was September. It's one of those magical days where the sun was out, really warm day, and we had really good surf, and everyone in the water was local, so we didn't really have too many issues with people getting into trouble. And we spent a lot of the time in the water and looking after kind of the local surfers to make sure there were no issues there. But it was one of those days where it was a dreamy day, the sun was out, really good surf, and we didn't have many incidences to deal with, because we don't like to work on a day where we have to rescue people. Lifeguards as a whole, we feel like we don't want to get ourselves wet to rescue people. We want to make sure that we're preventing things. So 99% of our work is actually trying to stop people getting into trouble in the first place. And that's what we enjoy doing. We don't actually want to go and pull someone out of the water. We feel like we've almost done our job badly if we have to do that sometimes.
Okay, cool. Zoe's just asked, what do you do in the off season? Like, do you manage? Obviously, the lifeguarding is kind of seasonal. What do you tend to do in between that?
Well, yeah, speaking for myself, so I've been running a company for probably about 15 years as well. I'm a designer. I'm a creative director of a branding and website company. So that's what I do in my time. So now I work as a lifeguard as a casual basis. I'm not full time anymore. I'm almost like an on-call lifeguard. I've been doing that for probably about 4 or 5 years. But other people do lots of different things. So a lot of people go abroad, because the award that you can achieve in the UK through Surf Life Saving Great Britain, which Steve delivers, is an international award. So you can go abroad to New Zealand, Australia, America, South Africa, wherever you want to go. You can go and actually work or volunteer as a beach lifeguard. So I probably reckon about 80 to 90% of a lifeguard service do that, or go traveling a little bit as well. And then 10% of people like me who've been doing it for years, and we've got families, and we just we do it because we don't want to hang up our speedos. We still enjoy working on the beach, and for me it's getting away from the office life, which I kind of do on my other side of my work. But I do a bit of other things. I teach at Truro School. I'm a sports coach at Truro School as well, so I do that occasionally. And then I help Steve out to deliver first aid courses and other life-saving kind of courses as well. So I've got other things that I do in the off season, so it's not just lifeguarding.
I see just to your left-hand side there, Matt, there appears to be a pair of lifeguarding Speedos there at Pride Place. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I got them in 2018. I established a surf life saving club called Gillen Bay Surf Life Saving Club in 2008. I founded the club, or co-founded it, and I was chairman for 10 years. And I stepped down after 10 years, and they offered me a life membership to the club, and as part of that they printed life member on a pair of red Speedos, which you can probably see there. So I've got them framed. I haven't hung them up yet, but yeah, I've won a couple of awards through Surf Life Saving for my dedication, I guess, to teaching it. That's
great. So long as you can keep fitting into them 10 years later, then that's fine.
Well, I think they're extra large. So.
So Caitlin's just been asking, what do you do kind of for training during lockdown? So obviously we can't get out in the water at the minute. So what do you do to keep fit?
Yeah, that's difficult. So I run a lot. I used to compete in running, so I do run quite a lot. I used to run with my dog, but she's a little bit too old now, and you probably see to the right of me, there's my puppy. So she's only 15 weeks, fast asleep. Hopefully she won't wake up. But she's training as a search and rescue dog. So I'm part of a West Cornwall search and rescue team. So I'm training her up to become a search and rescue dog. So that's taken up a lot of my time as well, going out for walks with her and training her. I do a fitness session through the Surf Life Saving Club that I'm part of. We've coordinated the different coaches to run a session every other day. So we're doing a similar thing to what you're doing now through Zoom, but each coach is leading a session with all the participants in the adult membership. So we're doing that, keeping ourselves fit. So we have a turbo training session, one every Monday, which is on the bikes that people can hook up to machines they've got at home. On Wednesday evening, we're doing a circuit training session. On Friday evening, we're doing like a swimming Pacific circuit session. And then we have a almost like a social hour on a Saturday evening. We'll all just sit around the screen and talk about the days of lifeguarding and the club days, and have maybe a beverage or two. And then on Sunday, we've got a person who teaches yoga. So we're all doing a stretching and yoga class on a Sunday. So it's quite a lot of different things to keep ourselves going. And it's more for the mental health of us all as well, because as you're all aware, we're sat in our homes. We need to start communicating and being social. So I think it's really important to keep that socialness going across all your colleagues and peers.
That's so keep yourself busy. I've just had a question come through. This I don't, and this is just asking for your opinion on it. I guess is that there seems to be there's different messages going about whether you should or shouldn't be going in the water at the minute. There is people in surfing, and there's a bit of mixed messages going on from different departments and stuff. How do you feel about that, and why do you think that is?
Yeah, so all the messaging that all the organisations have put together have come from the government. So that's their guiding. So they listen to what the government's saying. And because of the situation we're finding ourselves in, my personal opinion is that guidance is changing almost on a daily basis. But the communication channels aren't maybe the best. So all the organisations are picking them up. Social media and other channels like that are going to the public rather than they're not listening to the right channel. So you're hearing different things from other people who may not be the right people to be actually delivering that message. For me personally, I think we just bear this out and stay out of the water, because the issue you've got is, even if you're a really competent surfer, if you get yourself injured, or if you need you break your leash and you get caught out, the people that are going to come out to get you are volunteers, and we don't need to put a burden on the emergency services in this time. I think we all just need to dig down. The sea's not going to go away. The surf's not going to go away. We just need to kind of almost just think about who the person might be who has to come and get you out of the water if you get yourself in that situation.
And I guess it's impossible to social distance in a lifeboat. And those people have families at home that they're maybe looking after. They might have vulnerable people as well. Yeah,
that's it. I'm part of the search and rescue team, so we get called out for people who are missing, and we can kind of social distance on our calls, but on a lifeboat they can't. So you're putting them a lot of risk there, and even the police and other emergency services as well.
Matt, what do you think are some of the most common reasons why people get into difficulty at the beach? Outside of the unusual circumstances we're at the minute, but like during the summer, what do you see as some of the most common reasons for people being rescued?
Yeah, okay. So we don't, as I say, we don't often rescue people. I think it's one of those perceptions that we rescue people all day, every day on our beaches. It doesn't really happen like that. A lot of the time we are just keeping people safe, and that's why you always hear us on our tannoys or whistling. We're kind of keeping people in the right areas because that's a safe place to be. I'd say the most common reason why we're rescuing people in Cornwall, we do get decent surf down here. And of course, the conditions can always change. We try and keep people on the sandbanks within our flags, but there are occasions where people can slip slightly out of it, and it's the rip currents that generally do that. So people caught in rip currents accumulate for a large amount of our rescues, and that's something that's not their fault. It's just happened. They maybe got themselves into a little bit of a tricky situation in the water. They've gone a little bit too deep out of their depth, or the sandbank could have actually been a little bit dislodged. We don't know. But rip currents are a big marker for our rescues, and we can generally deal with that because we know where those people will be going and we can get them out of the water. Another common thing we find down here, a lot of our beaches are quite close to pubs or bars. So most beaches have a bar or a pub pretty much on the beach. So alcohol does play quite a large part, especially with the younger population, I'd say, the young adult population. Alcohol and water don't mix, so we often get people who've been in the pub all day drinking, then they go into the water and they can't really understand the dangers because their mental state due to the alcohol might not be as it was if they were sober. So that's another common reason. Also, we've got lots of different people using different types of craft. So we get learner surfers, we've got people on stand-up paddle boards who may not have been taught the right way, and offshore winds and conditions and rip currents can get them caught out as well. So I'd say on a beach like Perranporth, 90% of your rescues will be due to rip currents, and then 10% of the rescues will be to people doing things that we probably shouldn't have been doing in the first place.
Okay.
So really good kind of percentage.
When you come down to the beach, the lifeguards have loads of different flags up. What do they mean then?
Yeah, so people in Cornwall are probably more than aware of what they mean, but maybe other people may not be. So the red and yellow flags, that's where we put our swimmers and our bathers and our bodyboarders, and that's bodyboarders without fins, people who kind of almost what we call boogie boarders, who just kind of kick off the waves and surf the waves in. We put them there in the red and yellow flags because that's the safest area of the beach. And I say it's the safest, it doesn't mean it's safe. So you can still get caught out. You still get sandbanks that can collapse, and then we have to come and pull you out of the red and yellow area. It's not 100% safe, but that's the safest area. So that's where the shallowest water is, where the waves are breaking, where the sandbank is. Either side of that, we generally find that's where your rip currents are. So we don't want people to go there. You've got a black and white flag. Some beaches have it on flat water beaches because you get boats come in or kayaks, but on surf beaches, that's where your hard craft will be going. So you've got your stand-up paddleboards, your surfers, generally your learner surfers will be going in the black and white flags, people who aren't very competent, and we want to keep an eye on them just in case they get caught out. We've got the red flag, which I think is quite an obvious one. So that means danger, do not go into the water. We can fly that for a number of different reasons. Sometimes it could be weather conditions. So we've got lightning or fog. If it's foggy, if someone's in the water, they don't know the way back to the shore, you literally become disorientated. So we have to fly that flag. If it's lightning, of course, it's quite obvious why you shouldn't go into the water. If the rip currents are too strong and we can't manage the actual conditions, generally at low tide on most of our beaches, that would happen. We might put a red flag out for an hour or so until we can get people back onto the sandbank, because at low tide the sandbank pretty much just drops off on some beaches. And then high tide as well, so it's high tide with swell. Beaches like St Agnes, there's literally no beach left at high tide. Portreath is another one. High tide, when it's a shore dump, you can't really keep people safe. And there's other beaches like that, but almost of steep shelving beaches, we might fly a red flag at high tide. And the other reason why I put a red flag out in the past is marine life as well. So if we get any marine life wash up or any ordnances, anything that we think might actually be an explosive, we might have to shut the beach and get the Coast Guard in to just check it out to make sure it's not going to be a danger to the public.
Okay, cool, thank you.
That's the
got some other questions coming through here. Zoe's asking, do you think there needs to be more education for people visiting Cornwall to stay safe in the water?
I always think there's more education is needed. I think education is the key to keeping people safe in the water. Locals in Cornwall generally get taught it all the way from primary school up to secondary school, and even locals still get caught out occasionally. But yeah, I think there's organisations such as the RLI, such as Surf Life Saving Great Britain, and there's other charities as well who are going around the country and actually delivering those messages. So it is happening. There's lots of campaigns going out there. You just need to search on the internet, you can find them. So people can find that information for themselves if they choose to do so. It's quite interesting, but every time you rescue someone, you have to fill out a form. And we often ask just the town or the city where that person's come from. And the RLI can actually build up a statistics of where the people we're actually rescuing are. So let's say, per se, that a lot of people are being rescued from the city of Birmingham, We can then send our educational teams into Birmingham, into the schools, and educate the people who we know are being rescued. And that's something we're doing as a proactive way to actually stop for people getting in trouble. But in the UK, we don't really have that many people drowning in the water comparison with internationally. So there's organisations who are actually dealing with the international drowning burden, which is a lot more. So 360,000 people annually drown around the world involuntary. In the UK, you're looking at a very small amount of people compared with that. So the real issue for me is educating the international market who are actually in need of it. I think people in the UK can find that information for themselves, and when they get to the beaches, we can educate them as well.
That's fascinating. I didn't know there was that kind of taking the message to the people, as it were. That's really good. What advice would you give somebody if they find themselves in difficulty? Maybe they're down at the beach and they're stuck in a rip. They might be on a bodyboard or on something like that. What sort of advice would you give generally to people in that situation?
Yeah, okay. So firstly, I'd say do not go into the water until the lifeguard service is there or set up. Don't go to a beach that doesn't have a lifeguard service, because hopefully you then won't get into that trouble in the first place because you'll be in the right area. We often find when we get to the beach at 10 in the morning, we've got people who are actually going out in the rip current. If you look at a beach when you roll up in the morning, the surf is actually the safest place to go. But you often don't think that. So we would put our flags where the waves are breaking, where the water is shallowest, where the sandbanks are. However, when people who are uneducated or don't really understand the water get to the beach, they'll go where they think it's flatter because it's not as dangerous. They associate waves with danger. They associate flatness with a swimming pool because that's safe. That's generally where the rip currents are. So we often have to rescue people at 10 in the morning before we set up our beaches because they've all gone into the rip current. Whereas if we were there, they wouldn't have got trouble in the first place. So firstly, don't go to a beach that hasn't got lifeguards, and don't swim anywhere apart from the red and yellow flags. But if you do get caught in a rip current, because it could happen, even in the flagged area, it could happen, you get a flash rip where the sandbank collapses, and then you get kind of pushed out to sea. Do not let go of your board. Your board or bodyboard or surfboard, whatever it may be, is your flotation device. If you don't have that, you've got nothing to keep yourself afloat. Generally, just keep hold of it. Wave one arm, and someone will come and get you. You can float all day in the sea. You'll be fine. Even in a wetsuit, you can last a long time. Hypothermia generally won't set in. Our waters aren't that cold in the summer, so you can last quite a long time in those wetsuits. If you don't have a board, if you're just swimming, don't struggle against the rip current, because even strong swimmers would struggle to get back in. So the best thing to do is do not panic. Literally just lie on your back. Remember your swim teaching when you were younger. Lie on your back, keep your head out of the water, almost like that starfish position, and just float and see where the current can take you. As soon as you fight against it, that's when your energy goes, that's when you can go under the water. You can float all day in the sea. It's got salt as well, so it can keep you out of the water. Wave one arm, call for help, and someone will come and get you. There's always someone walking on the coast path. There's always someone on the beach. We've got the search and rescue helicopter in Newquay, which is pretty much accessible in Cornwall within a 10 to 15 minute radius wherever you are. You've got lifeboats dotted around the area, and if it's a lifeguarded beach, the lifeguard will come and get you anyway. So just float, do not panic, keep your head out of the water, starfish, and if you're concerned at all and you want to swim back in, always try and go parallel to the beach towards the waves. So the waves are your safe area. Try and get yourself back towards the waves, and that will wash you back in towards the beach.
Okay, cool. That's good advice. What about if you saw somebody else that was in difficulty? What if you were down the beach and you saw somebody look like they were in trouble? What would be the best thing that you could do you think?
Yeah, you're asking me as a lifeguard, or you're asking if I was to advise a member of the public?
If you were a holidaymaker on the beach, you're just down the beach, you see somebody in difficulty, not a lifeguard, maybe not necessarily maybe a good swimmer, but they're not used to the sea.
Yeah, well, the answer probably wouldn't change that much whether I was a lifeguard or whether I was just a holidaymaker, to be honest, because the first thing I would say is call for help. Get yourself on the phone. If you see someone in trouble, you need to make a phone call as quickly as possible, and it's 999 and speak to the Coast Guard. because as soon as you find someone in trouble, they can task a number of different people. As I mentioned, they can get the helicopter en route, they can get the lifeboat en route, they can get the Coast Guard teams en route, they can call the lifeguards to actually come and assist you. I would never go into the water personally unless I tell someone. Until I tell my colleague, I would always radio my colleague to say I'm going in, because you can get yourself into trouble. Just that person who's flapping for help in the water, they have a lot of adrenaline built up. So as soon as you can approach them, they're going to see you, and then you'll become their float. So they'll grab hold of you, and then you're under the water, and then they're out of the water. So first thing I would personally do, lifeguarding or holidaymaker, is get on the phone and call for help. Next thing you want to do is try and reassure that person. Say, help's on the way. Don't worry. Do not panic. Just float. Just get onto your back and try and float. You know, as I've told you, you can last a long time floating in the water. That's no issues at all. I would do that even if I was a lifeguard. So don't panic. Help's coming. Whether I'm going to enter the water as a lifeguard or I'm just on the beach. Okay, just tell them to just relax. Next thing to do is try, if you can, if they're close enough, let's say they're falling into a canal or a lake, you can potentially try to reach to them. So you don't want to get yourself wet. Number one is do not go into the water yourself, because you can get yourself in trouble. As I mentioned, I've got no flotation device on me. If I go into the water, they're going to pull me under. So I'm number one. I'm thinking about myself first. Try and reach them, whether that's your arm. But bear in mind, if you do reach out with your arm, they can be really strong, they can be heavier than you, they can pull you into the water, or find a bit of equipment that you can reach with. So on our beaches, you've got windbreak poles, you've got the rescue tubes as a lifeguard, you've got buckets and spades, whatever it may be, you can potentially reach to that individual. If they've gone a little bit further out, you've got another option. Without getting in the water, you can look for those public rescue equipment boxes at the back of the beach, the PREs, the bright red. They're dotted all over Cornwall and even the UK, I imagine. Inside of them, you've got a plastic ring, or potentially you could have a throw line, depending on what box you choose. You can throw a piece of equipment to that individual that they can use as a flotation device. Keep hold of the rope yourself, so you're not throwing them a rope. That won't do them any favours. And then you can pull them back in. When you do pull them back in, this has happened to me through my water rescue kind of knowledge, they will pull quite hard because they want to get back to the shore. So if you haven't got yourself a good stance and you're just stood with your legs up, they can quite easily pull you in. So you need to get yourself low down. Imagine you're kind of in a martial art movie and you're doing a fighting stance. Get yourself nice and low to the floor, balance your weight, even if you're lying down on the floor, and then pull them in that way. One little bit of advice, just tell them to hold onto the rope, and then can they put it over their shoulder? Because when you pull them in, you don't want to be pulling them in with their face looking towards you, because they can pull themselves under the water. So they want to be lying on their back. So when you're pulling them in, they're kicking their legs away from you, almost like they're lying on their back, doing a bit of a starfish. It doesn't push them under the water. So that's
cool.
kind of your options there. So you've called for help. That's your first thing. Next thing is you've reassured them, you calm them down, you've reached to them, you've thrown something in the water. By that point, the helicopter's probably arrived and they're going to be helping them out anyway. But I wouldn't go into the water myself, because as soon as you go in, you're going to get yourself in trouble. There's 2 casualties, and then that's more of an incident than it was to start with. So you've already calmed that person down. They're just floating. They're just waiting for the helicopter or lifeboat to pluck them out. So don't go. So what we say is call, reach, throw, but don't go. That's kind of Steve's favourite line, isn't it, Steve?
Okay, thanks, Matt. That's brilliant. Key thing, I guess, is just don't go in the water, because you'll just be another casualty. Yeah. That's really good, Matt. I think we've covered quite a lot of ground there. If anybody has any sort of final closing questions, if you want to ping them to me now, and I can ask. But if there's not, is there any final bits of words of wisdom you can offer to people? What about if they wanted to, they're inspired by surf life saving, they wanted to maybe give it a go and learn a bit more about beach safety and all that sort of thing, what should they do?
Yeah, well, I highly recommend it. So when I started lifeguarding, I wasn't a surf lifesaver. I'm kind of one of the exceptions that hasn't come through a surf lifesaving club background when I started. I started lifeguarding personally because I got in trouble in the water. I surfed, I got myself in trouble. I went in on a day that I probably shouldn't have gone in. My leash broke. I was left in a really dangerous situation trying to get back to shore. And I thought I need to learn how to recover myself and also how to recover one of my friends if they got into trouble as well. So I did a lifeguard course, and then the next season I started working as a beach lifeguard. So that was kind of my experience of how I got involved. A lot of the time now people are coming from a surf lifesaving club, and I think that's a really good way to do it, because you learn all that experience before you start lifeguarding. And I had a debate with someone on BBC Cornwall a couple of years ago, and it was saying that I was told by a 17-year-old lifeguard that I shouldn't be surfing in the red and yellow flags. And he said, well, this lifeguard had no experience. How can they tell me not to surf in the red and yellow flags? Because they're only 17. We have to remember, a lot of these surf lifesavers who are working on our beaches started when they were 7. They started learning their trade when they were only 7. So a 17-year-old lifeguard working on our beaches could have 10 years of surf lifesaving experience under their belt. So they're already incredibly experienced. They know exactly what we're talking about, even though they may be really young, they're really knowledgeable. So trying to have that debate, to me, to say a 17-year-old can't tell me what to do, I kind of put that back to him, and then he hung up the phone. So he didn't want to continue that debate. So just bear in mind that you could have a lot of experience as a younger lifeguard. So I would recommend have a look on Surf Lifesaving Great Britain's website. Now, they've listed all the clubs that they kind of associated to that organisation. You have another association called the RLSS that have inland water rescue clubs. So if you live in a landlocked place, you can go and learn your lifeguarding for a swimming pool environment. But on the beaches, at Surf Lifesaving Great Britain, all the clubs can take you on, they teach you the lifeguard award, they train you to become a competent lifesaver, from negotiating surf, to doing the first aid, to learning the signals, to learning the environment, everything you need to know. And then I then recommend you apply to work with the RNLI if you want to continue that career. And the RNLI take on volunteers and they take on full-time lifeguards. Bit of an issue this season, of course, that there isn't really a season. So this isn't probably be year 2 apply if you were to, but the RNLI are always calling out for lifeguards each year. So wherever you're based, in the Southwest, it's always a lot more competitive. Other areas of the UK, you're probably more likely to find work, but in the Southwest, they generally take lifeguards on who've come from a club background, because they know they're going to be the more experienced and more rounded lifesavers as a whole. So that's always a good tip.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Matt. And I think there is some. We'll post some links to some videos. I think the RNLI have some really good campaigns and videos like Float to Live and stuff like that. So maybe we will to post them on the link on the Beach Rangers, the Your Shore Beach Rangers page and stuff as well. I think all the questions have been asked. So listen, thank you very much, Matt. I really appreciate your time today, and good luck with staying fit and healthy, and hopefully we'll all be back in the water soon. For everybody who is here kind of watching, I really appreciate you guys coming along and listening to what Matt has to say and asking some really good questions. So thank you very much for that. As I say, this session has been recorded, so I'll send that to Brenda, who'll put it out on the Your Shore Beach Rangers Facebook page, so you can go on and watch it there or share it with other people. Okay, thank you very much, Matt, and thanks for everybody for watching. Cheers now.
Thank you. Cheers.
See you later. Bye. Bye.